Hi, my name is Daniel Lange and I'm going to be going over a few problems with quotes that editors should have a good grasp on. While it's not the editor's responsibility to verify the validity of every single quote and where it came from, they are expected to handle grammar, errors, block quotes, and syntax problems. So first up, we have misspelling and strange wording. Copy editors can silently change certain things that aren't necessarily intended to be misspelled. So in this first quote, the handbook stated that teachers need to actively spend time with their students. You can see that actively is misspelled, and in the manuscript, in the final product that is, it is okay for the editor to just silently change that without adding any comments. You can see the revised where actively has been changed to the correct spelling. With strange wording, if you're doing a direct quote from an interview or audio recording, there are usually uhs, likes, and stops and starts. It's okay for the copy editor to once again silently remove these for the clarity of the idea. So you see with this comment it says, it's hard to know exactly where tax dollars go. It's all very nebulous, you see, and filler sentences like that. So the quote you could have would be the second quote. The senator commented on the spending increases, saying that, quote, it's hard to know exactly where tax dollars go, eliminating the false start as well as the filler afterwards. In that vein, if you do want to leave errors in intentionally, it's okay to put in brackets and italicized sic, which is the Latin word for thus. Sic is used to designate that yes, this error is intentionally left in for whatever reason the editor designates. Next, editors should be expected to know what to do with run-in and block quotes and which is acceptable in certain situations. When you have large quotes, such as this run-in quote, it's up to the editor and author to decide whether you want a block quote or whether you want to leave it in text, like this first example. So you see this example of a run-in quote. It's a bit lengthy, it takes up a lot of space on the page, and this may disorient the reader to not know where the original author's ideas end. So with block quoting, you have the introduction of the quotes, where it says, the difference is to be found in the procedure of access to the individual. Then you have the author's statement, which says, Foucault argues. Afterwards, you don't have to put the following statement in quotations, and typically you want to make the following quote a smaller font, just to denote that this is an actual quotation from another work. Next is punctuation, and this is an issue with quotes because you can introduce quotes in different ways depending on the situation. Colons are used to introduce lengthy quotations or after the following or thus. Block quotes can be introduced using a colon, comma, or period as well, depending on the sentence that introduces the quote. Something that is also a bit tricky is single and double and sometimes even triple quotation marks. So with this final example on the screen, single and double quotation marks, the CEO said, quote, while we as a company believe in the, quote, leave no trace philosophy, profits come first. So you see the use of the single quotation there as opposed to the double quotation. A more tricky example is if you had a quote within that single quotation mark, you would use double quotes to show a quote within that single quotation. So if the CEO had added a quote within that single quote, you would use double quotation marks. It's a bit tricky, but it's not too complicated once you get the hang of it. Lastly is syntax, which is very important. This is important because flowing in and out of quotes can disorient the reader if they're not seamlessly put in. Here's an example of awkward syntax usage. The author insisted that while working on a quote manuscript, one should always keep the audience in mind. You have the introduction of a quote mid-phrase, and you want it to be a separate thought. So a better version is this. The author insisted that it is always important to, quote, keep the audience in mind while working on a manuscript. This is a set-apart quote. Also, brackets are used to emphasize, clarify, or explain words within quotes. This quote from Foucault, which reads, a real subjection is born mechanically from a, quote, fictitious relation, and you have these italicized word added for emphasis. Because of this, you want to put emphasis added within brackets inside the quote to show that the author added the emphasis. Also, you want to have the emphasis added within brackets inside and the citation outside. You can use brackets to also add letters if the sentence doesn't make sense within the new context, or you can use them to show that you decapitalized the letter depending on the style book you are using. This is typically only within the AP style book. So I hope that you learned a lot, and thanks for watching.